May I respond? We did provide a year's worth of emails that second site requested.
Unfortunately, those emails that were provided were for the wrong year.
That seems to me an amazing error. Are there any other issues?
Probably most important would be full access to the legal and prosecution files held by the Post Office.
Paula, why don't you make those files available? What's the problem?
The point I want to pick up first, if I may.
No. Answer my question.
Welcome to the Don't Get So Emotional podcast. I'm Paul and I'm joined by Tom. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Paul.
Right, so this week we're going to be talking about the story that's top of the news. It's the Mr Bates versus the Post Office programme, which has prompted a huge outcry, public outcry, against the activity of the Post Office against sub-postmasters. So let's start at the beginning. Mr Bates versus the Post Office, which was screened on ITV over 4 nights. So when I spoke to you about potentially doing this, you hadn't seen the drama, and I don't think you knew anything about the whole thing, did you?
No, I mean, I didn't know anything about it, and I think no one did. Well, there might have been some, but not a lot of people, because clearly now, after all this awareness, there's outrage, and it's all over the news. There's articles about it, all sorts of things going on. So people clearly weren't aware of it.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of aware about it, but not. I think when you see a drama that features a story, it's got a lot more impact, hasn't it? You can kind of relate to it.
It is the first time, personally, that I've heard that. I'm happy to go away and have a look.
They've been told that under no circumstances could they be given those files. Is that right or wrong?
I do not recall that.
And you can...
And also, one thing I think is interesting is 40% of people don't watch the news.
Statistical fact.
So that 40% of people are probably people that watch dramas on ITV. So that's the first time they've heard about it. And, there's been calls for Paula Venables, who was the CEO, to actually resign. Hey! Breaking news! Breaking news!
What?
Live! Former Post Office boss Paula Venables to hand back CBE.
Was that literally now?
Further recognition for Alan Bates, who helped expose scandal. There we go. Breaking news. Can't see that because it's all. Do you see that? No.
No. Is it literally now?
Yeah, literally now. Okay, well, pity we're not live, but okay. Well, this was one of the things we're going to talk about. Okay, hang on. How many days has this been going? Basically, they did a petition for.
Oh yeah.
Hang on, let's have a look at the petition. Let's see how the petition's doing. They did a petition for her to hand back her CBE, okay, and I signed it, and I've sent it to lots of people, and they've signed it. Let's have a look at the petition. So there's the petition. You can't see it on there. So, Post Office scandal, stripped Paula Venables of a CBE created by David Smith, removed the CBE granted to Paula Venables due to her role in the wrongful prosecution of 550 staff at the Horizon as part of the Horizon computer scandal. How many signatures do you think it's got, Tom?
800,000.
1.2 million.
Fucking hell.
So I would say, but the question I've got to ask, why did it take so long for Paula Venables to hand back her CB? I think in this country, performing badly is rewarded.
That is a fact.
Yeah, we hear about it all the time, where people are rewarded for performing badly. Now, I don't think you can perform any worse than Paula Venables performed. as the CEO of the post office. Why the hell she was given a CBE in the first place, I've got no idea. But the anger of people to this thing, to do that many people signing, but there's more. Ed Davey, Ed Davey. Remember, if we go way back when there was the coalition, Ed Davey was responsible as a minister and did nothing, and claims that he was misled.
Yeah, and apparently I was listening to the radio earlier, and it was saying that he is. I think he's called in the last 2 years or so. He's called for 31 people to resign from their positions of whatever power it may be.
Yeah.
So he's all for people stepping down, but I think her stepping down now and not back then,
Not stepping down, giving back her CBE.
Well, yeah, that's it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't. Well, one, she probably should have resigned back then, or once it was apparent what was going on, she should have resigned from the position.
Yeah.
But she was actually given an OBE after all of this was
CBE.
made. CBE.
Get it right.
Was all. So she
no,
was
people
awarded.
Be like in the chat, Tom. They'll be going, "It's not an OBE, it's a CBE." You guys not do any research, and the answer to that question is no. No. Talking.
What I'm saying is, Paul, is that it just supports the fact that no one was aware of what was going on to any real extent. In fact, the opposite was happening. The people that were being accused of theft were getting really bad press. So they were being accused of, thieving off of old ladies and this, that, and the other. That's what was in the press, not the post office. So this couldn't happen in this day and age because there is a cancel culture. And obviously in instances like this, it works. But, that pressure, that public pressure works. Yeah. And so that's why she's handed it back now. But, clearly people weren't aware of it back then enough. Because imagine if this scandal happened back then and people were genuinely aware of it to the extent they are now, and then all of a sudden she gets given a CBE.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't happen. Like, it wouldn't happen today. And I think because of this series and the documentary that come out, that's why people are now outraged by it. But
I'll tell you why I'm outraged as well. So if you're the little guy, and we're little guys, and the people watching this are little guys, if you're a little guy and you want to take a big corporation to court, the only way you can do it is if you've got 500 plus, I think it's 550 or 500 plus people to join you. And you need to have lawyers that are willing to do the work at a very reduced cost or whatever. So you haven't got a chance if you're going up against it. Let me just have a look at the figures behind this. It's a scandal. Just bear me a second. Right. So there's 11,500 post office branches in the UK. 736 sub-postmasters were prosecuted for fraud or theft. 4 sub-postmasters took their lives. 2,500 have applied for compensation from the post office. 777 have received compensation. 61 have died before receiving any compensation. The post office paid out 17.5 million. Paula Reynolds earned 4.5 million during her 7-year tenure. 32 million was spent by the post office trying to prove there was no fault. 32 million. 100 million was spent by the post office on lawyers, and 1,200 maximum the post office has contributed to any sub-postmasters' legal fees, and there's 0 punitive damages.
I don't think it's not just about the money, because I imagine that most people got money back. Obviously, they couldn't get their homes that they lost back. They couldn't get their businesses back. The people that have died, you can't get them back.
Reputation.
But any money-wise, I think they would have probably got their money back and some. Especially now, after all this pressure. If you wouldn't have got it back, you will get it back. But what I wanted to talk about is that, and me and you have talked about this already, is that I don't feel like this could happen to me.
We know that that's not true.
I just don't feel like it
Right,
could happen.
get ready for the hate in the chat. Look, I think this could happen to me, and I'm surprised it hasn't.
Oh, it could happen to you, easy.
Yeah, but you don't think that you would have. I mean, if you think about Alan Bates, who's the guy that the drama is based on, he's like you. He didn't accept that it was his fault, and he didn't accept. He saw that there was something wrong, and basically had to just leave. And they
The
gave him.
mistake, the mistake that people made was they started paying it back, right? So, you know, they had a shortfall. Maybe it started off at a grand or whatever, and they pay that back, and then it got to like 9,000, and then they, you know, remortgaged their house to pay that off, or blah blah blah. Like
Blah blah blah. First one.
Stop saying that!
that was a mistake. He refused to pay any, and he never got convicted of anything. You know, he didn't pay them anything. He didn't get convicted of anything. So yes, he's lost his business and his livelihood and whatever, but he was better off than some of the others, and that's purely because he refused to accept responsibility and blamed it on their Horizon system. That's exactly the stance I'd take. In fact, I'd go one step further, because obviously people were trying to ring the helpline, and the people on the other end of the phone would.
Tom, are you crazy?
You went all funny. You went all sideways.
No, so basically, they were ringing up the helpline, and the people that were supposed to be helping them were basically just taking the piss out of them. And you know, there was one instance where they were guiding them through doing something, and it ended up doubling their shortfall. And then they basically said, "Well, you know, you are responsible, so."
Who runs the post office?
The thing that I think is strange is whether or not the post office knew what was going on. Okay, let's assume for a moment they didn't know what's going on. I think that's very unlikely, but let's say they didn't think what's going on. Don't you think it's a bit ironic and a bit weird that they're suddenly employing hundreds of people who are all dishonest? Don't you think someone say, it's funny, all these sub postmasters and people we're taking on, they're all wrong uns.
The whole thing was mental, because, you know, there were people that had gone years, decades doing their balances at the end of the day manually, never having any problems, never being accused of anything, and then suddenly overnight, even on the first day of this Horizon system being implemented, people were getting shortfalls or whatever. So it was obvious. It was just a massive cover up. It was delusional, and they were clearly just in denial. No, system works. Don't want to hear anything else, and it was just being covered up.
Well, let's talk about the drama. I mean, did you think it was?
Yeah.
Did you think it was well made? Did it?
Yeah, no, I like dramas like that. I thought that, you know, we're watching a bloody documentary, a series about the post office. So I didn't think it would be interesting, but because of just how mental it was just like, what is going on? How can this even happen? And again, it says something about human beings, how you know, they'll just go along with things. That ain't me. So
There's a story here. The writer of the drama is astounded by the reaction. The writer of the drama that ruined hundreds of post office workers' lives has said she's completely astounded by the response over the past week. Gwyneth Hughes, who spent 3 years working on the 4-part drama Mr Bates versus the Post Office, said the team behind it were gratified and amazed, and the postmasters are ecstatic. The response included a statement in Parliament and more than 1 million people. We've already covered that. Let's have a look at this statement from Parliament, shall we? So, Rishi Sunak considers plan to exonerate Post Office Horizon scandal victims. The Prime Minister reveals government could also strip Post Office of its powers to prosecute. Definitely should do that. The Prime Minister confirmed that Alex Chalk, the Justice Secretary, could strip the Post Office of its powers to prosecute after more than 700 managers were wrongly handled convictions. I think it is one of the biggest miscarriages of justice in the modern time, and I think hats off to ITV. Now, I'm not a fan of ITV dramas; they're generally pretty dire, but this was good. All the acting was totally believable. It was gripping, and I mean, I watched the first two, and then the next night I said to my girlfriend, I want to finish it. I want to find out what happens. Was that the same with you, or did you binge it? Because you're a binger.
We pretty much binged it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we immediately watched the documentary afterwards.
Yeah, there's a really, if you haven't seen it, there's also a really interesting documentary, which is actually talking to the characters that are featured in the drama, which is well worth checking out. But to finish off, I'm glad that Paula Venables has been stripped of her CBE. I'm disappointed that it took her so long to do it. And I'm also disappointed that so many people in positions of authority that could have said no and should have said no didn't. And I think that says a lot. And I think we should always keep an eye on those in power and hold them to account. There you go.
Yeah.
I'll get off my soapbox now.
Also, because we haven't actually mentioned what the problem was or what was actually happening. So basically, you know, people that run post offices were responsible for the balancing, you know, essentially doing the books, and were doing it manually for years and years. And they brought in this new Horizon system to automate things, or to, you know, maybe cut costs, and it didn't work. It was just ridiculous.
I thought it was really good the way the drama used the inquiry, and actually included some of the people involved in it. And I've actually got some footage of the original inquiry, so I'm going to play it now.
Paula, why don't you give those files over? What's the problem?
So I think the point I want to pick up first, if I may, is...
No, just answer my question first. Why won't you give Ian Henderson those files?
We
Why?
have, as far as I'm aware, Mr Zahawi, we have shared whatever information was appropriate on every
That's
single...
not what Ian Henderson's saying.
It is the first time, personally, I have heard that. I'm very happy to go away and have a look. Second site...
He has evidence saying that under no circumstance he'd be given those files. That's what you've just told me. Is that right?
We've not been given those files.
You've been told by
Angela, I don't know...
Paula's organisation that under no circumstance you'd be given those files. Is that right or wrong?
Who told you that, Ian?
It came up at one of the working group meetings which you and I were present at.
Ian,
I don't recall that
Ian is
conversation.
completely...
Well, this sounds like a shambles to me. You came in here and opened by saying the system's working beautifully. You now realise why you're in front of the committee, is that right?
The sister... The reason...
I thought that. So when I obviously watched the drama,
Yeah.
and then we watched the documentary, and while they were showing footage of the original select committee, I was like, that's the same guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was the guy that was really going in on her and not letting her off the hook.
He did great, didn't he? He did great.
Mm.
And, you know, anyway, I thought it was a really good drama. I'm really pleased that she stood down. I'm hopeful that everyone involved that suffered financially is, you know, given their dues. And hats off to the hardworking sub postmasters and postmistresses of this country, because they're great. My local post office is great. I've got a great little girl that works there and helps me out. Fantastic. You know, it helps the community. Right, if you're new to the channel, where have you been? We do we talk about anything. We talk about topics and things that interest us, and when we can talk. We've got some fantastic stuff coming up. We've had tens of thousands of people watching our stuff, but we're still a very small channel. So what you can do to really help us is smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share the show with your friends. And yeah, keep watching. We've got some great stuff coming up. We're not going to talk about what it's coming up. I mean, we've got a couple of things lined up, haven't we? Really good things. And we've got some stuff about these guys in the background. You can work out what that is. That's going to be an upcoming episode. But that's
Also,
all for this episode. Eh?
Can I just say, Paul?
Tell me.
I want to encourage people to leave comments. So even if it's negative, even if you think me and Paul are a pair of twats,
Oi, language.
leave the comment. Leave the comment. I don't mind.
Yeah, but people have been very rude to you, Tom.
They have.
Yeah. So don't. If
But
you're going
I
to
don't
leave a
mind it.
comment, don't be rude to Tom. We can
Be rude
if
to
you
Paul
want.
instead.
Some people. One thing. When you read through the comments, some people are really nice. Some people, but it does show you there's some really strange people out there. That this. You remember, we're doing this for free. Okay, we're doing
And
this
for a laugh.
We're doing it for a laugh, and we hope you enjoy it. But we're not experts. We're just two guys with an opinion and putting content out there, and we hope you enjoy it. But some people are just like, I don't know, they're just very weird comments. Some of them, you know, we are not the BBC. Far from it. We're two guys. But anyway,
But I don't mind it. So by all means, if you do have negative comments, leave them. I don't care.
yeah, it all helps the algorithm after all. Okay, well, look, it's been an interesting episode. Thank you very much for clicking, and if you've made it this far, thumbs up to you, and we will catch you on the next one.